Sami Al-Arian is the director of the Center for Islam and Global Affairs at Istanbul Sabahattin Zaim University. Thank you so much for coming in, Sami. Just your overriding thoughts right now.
Well, Harris does not have to win North Carolina or Georgia to win the presidency, but she has to win Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Right now, she's a little bit up in Pennsylvania and Michigan. Whether she maintains that lead remains to be seen, but she's also a little behind in Virginia, a state that she's supposed to win, but a majority of the votes in the counties where she is strong hasn't been counted yet. So if we assume she wins Virginia and also Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, then she becomes president.
Yeah, it's all over, because we expect the way it's going, the way historically the polls were saying, we know most of the states, if she wins those three Rust Belt states at the top of the country, she's the president.
But it's not guaranteed that she would win.
Yeah.
That's what people hope, those who support her. But I think it's too early to call it.
Sure. This is really interesting. Fani Willis is the Georgia prosecutor who's pursuing the election interference case against Donald Trump. She's won re-election. And it really comes down to what happens after today with Donald Trump's legal issues.
Well, I mean, if he wins the presidency, I think most of them will go away, at least will be postponed, because a president or president-elect will not be prosecuted. So I think they will try to speed up the process, but I think the court system will bring it to a halt. So nothing is going to happen until he leaves office. By that, all of them will be stale.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Apparently, Judge Merchant, the one who's prosecuting or presiding over the case in New York and falsifying business records, has a reputation for sending these kind of felons to jail. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, that's a state case. That's different.
Yeah, exactly, because he can't pardon himself in a state case, of course.
Correct. Yeah.
Do you feel that Donald Trump almost disregards the reputation and the safeguarding of democracy when he presents himself as a presidential candidate, because of the way he talks and the litigation that might be coming if this is going to be close, challenging the results? We expect him to speak in the next 2 or 3 hours in Florida, and many people are thinking, even if it's not confirmed, he's going to say, I won. And if I don't win, I'm going to be cheated out of it.
He will, and he doesn't care about these things. He doesn't care about democracy. He doesn't care about how people feel or don't feel about him. All what he cares about is himself. And I think the surprising, and may not be so surprising after so many years of Trump, is that he does what he wants and he gets away with it because he's becoming a personality and a leader of a cult. And that's what it is. A lot of people are so tired of the whole situation in which they wanted someone to speak on their behalf and basically to stick it in to the establishment, and that's what Trump is famous for.
But don't you also feel that Kamala Harris has had enough time to present herself and her vision to the people of the United States, and yet they keep coming back to her and saying, but you're exactly like the guy you've just served as vice president too?
Kamala Harris is the only person who was not an incumbent and did not have to go through a primary. So that's a huge drag on her. People don't know her. And what they know about her before she won the vice president position is that she was a candidate for a few months, didn't win a single delegate, and she had to withdraw. And now she is becoming a presidential candidate without any scrutiny, without any primary contest, without real campaigning. I mean, how long has she campaigned? Few months? That's not enough in the American elections. But yet, I mean, the whole Democratic Party came around her, so that will give her that. Now, whether she's able to bring a victory, it remains to be seen. As I said, there are many states that have already been determined because of the historical nature of being pro-Democrats more than pro-Republicans. But we have the swinging states, the 7 swinging states, in which she has to win 44 electoral votes. And they are about 93, so she has to win almost less than half. That means, as I said earlier, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. And if she loses either Michigan or Wisconsin, she has to replace them with either Arizona, North Carolina, or Virginia. And that now with Virginia and North Carolina is probably too difficult. Sorry, not Virginia, North Carolina and Georgia, that's probably a bit difficult. But if she loses Pennsylvania, it's over.
Interesting. Okay, you know, this has been set up so much as a contest of demographics, and the science is so precise that they can almost identify streets where there are certain demographics that they should go and knock on doors, you know, white against non-white, Latinos against non-Latinos, women against men. But what about class? Okay, in 2020, the Democratic Party lost the non-college educated working class vote by 4 percentage points. Recent polls suggesting that number could be worse this time. So what's happened to the Democratic Party? What about its traditional role as the champion of the working class, who make up the majority of voters? In 2020, more than half of all members of Congress were millionaires. 2/3 of all senators were millionaires. Since 1789, this is quite incredible, the same seat in the US House of Representatives has never changed hands from one former blue-collar worker to another blue-collar worker. 1% are Republicans, 2% are Democrats that serve in state legislatures. They come from working-class jobs. And it's nowhere near the representation that working-class people actually have. And then in the 2022 midterm elections, only 2.3% of Democratic Party candidates exclusively worked in blue-collar jobs. Okay, that kind of says something, Sami, about the representation that people have in their elected representatives. Is it a disconnect between those who rule and those that they rule over?
Absolutely, there's a disconnect. The largest number of people actually are neither Democrats nor Republicans. They are the non-voters. Over 100 million people actually do not bother to go and vote. Remember, this is Tuesday. It's a working day for most people.
And it's not a holiday in the States.
And it's not a holiday, and it takes a long time. In Turkey here, people could go in and out within 10, 15 minutes. Over there, you may have to stand hours and hours in line in order to vote. And if you're a working class person, a person who is a day job, day laborer, or someone who depends on his job, they may not even bother to go and vote because we need the job. So it's a capitalist society to the hilt. When we're talking about the United States of America, first of all, the party structure is not that strong, but it's basically, when we talk about the majority of Republicans and Democrats, they both serve the same master, the capitalist class.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that. So are the Democrats possibly not what they were to the working class? Because certainly Donald Trump likes to say to them, I'm the guy that's going to help you. But when you look at his record and the tax cuts that he'd like to continue, and also the corporation tax that he wants to reduce, those tax cuts, they pretty much benefited richer people rather than anybody else.
He's a liar. I mean, he just used rhetoric in order to advance his agenda. He was never for the little guy. He was never for this. But he speaks their language. He knows how to address them. He always criticizes the Democrats and even some of the Republicans, but he's always trying to advance his own agenda. And his own agenda is the agenda of the billionaires, of the 1%ers, of the 1%ers. And that's what he's been about. I mean, it's not like we don't know Donald Trump. Donald Trump was there for 4 years. So he has a track record. But unfortunately, the Democrats are so weak, and because they are beholden to the same class, that sometimes they do not go far enough. All the changes, hysterical changes that Democrats do, they're not deep. They tinker on the edges in order, again, to serve. For example, if you look at bank reforms after the 2008 collapse, it wasn't really deep enough to address the real issues. It was a bailout in which the capitalists, those who lost billions and hundreds of billions of dollars, they were able to be bailed out and get what they lost. But it is the little man the worker, who has to hold his hands at the end without having much to show for it.
It reminds me when I lived in Latin America, people used to say the Americans think they have a difference between their left and right parties. If they want to know the difference between left and right, come to some countries in Latin America.
Yeah.
Sami, we'll speak more later. Thank you very much indeed.